Did you know there are people online making 40K a month teaching people how to scoop dog poop? And yes, you heard that right. Dog poop. Like, this is not even a joke. Like, let me show you. Like, look at these guys. They have a school community with over 600 members, and they charge $69 a month to teach people how to start a poop scooping dog business. 600 members times $69 a month for 12 months. That's almost a $500,000 business a year. And I'm ready to bet that their profit margins are pretty good. Now, I'm telling you this because in 2026, you can turn any skill into a profitable business. If you have a skill, you can create a course, coach people, or offer a service and get 10K a month pretty easily. And 10K a month will change your life. I know a lot of these gurus tell you that 10K a month is nothing. Don't even listen to them. If you're making 10K a month profit, your life is pretty fucking good. It's pretty amazing. Like, do you realize that 90% of people in the entire world will never make that amount of money in a single month, right? Whereas, I don't know, social media fucked your brain so much that you believe you need to make at least 100K a month to live a good life. Like, what are we talking about here? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be ambitious, you shouldn't aim to make 100K a month. I'm not saying that you shouldn't aim to make millions of dollars. I want to become a 100 millionaire. I want to become a billionaire, maybe, possibly. But no, let's get back to reality for a second, and let's not forget that 10K a month is a lot of money and is amazing money. I want you to think of all the people you know. How many can you say make 10K a month? Like, I want you to close your eyes and imagine you have 10K in your bank account right now. How different would your life be if you had that 10K? So, you need to take one step at a time. You need to take things one step at a time. And this is what I've done personally. I went from 0 to 10K and then I scaled to almost 200K a month. And I've helped people go from zero experience to a 10K a month in only 3 months. I've helped people sign their first client in less than 7 days. So if someone can make 40K a month teaching people how to scoop poop, you can definitely turn your skill into a profitable business. Starting from scratch with no money, no experience, and no following. And I'm going to tell you how. So let's get started. So let's think about why it's so hard for you to get to 10K a month. 10K is like a big milestone. It looks so hard to get there before you do it, but in reality, getting to 10K a month is relatively easy if you know what you're doing. And unfortunately, you don't know what you're doing. I'm not saying you're not doing anything, but you're probably trying so many different things and you can't stick to one thing. You have that shiny object syndrome, the famous shiny object syndrome, and you start one business model and then a newer one comes out and you follow the trend, you get stuck in this cycle of perpetual failure and where you keep switching business models without sticking to one for long enough to actually succeed. So, you have this shiny object syndrome, but you're also listening to a lot of contrasting advice from different gurus, all telling you different things. Everyone tells you to do their business model, and that all the other ones are don't work anymore or they're scams. Some people tell you to build an audience, to do cold outreach, to sell high ticket, sell low ticket. Some people say to sell a digital product, start a personal brand, niche down, stay broad. No wonder you're fucking confused because I was in the same situation and I was just trying my best, but I was confused as fuck because I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. And the problem with all this different advice from all these different people is that they're not wrong. They're not necessarily wrong and it's not bad advice. It's just that it's not made specifically for your unique situation. They're giving you advice that's not made for the specific stage of business that you're in. So getting to 10K is actually four completely different problems stacked on top of each other, and what solves problem one has nothing to do with what solves problem four, for example. So you have stage one, and you don't know what skill to monetize, and the bottleneck is the skill. Like, you don't know what to do. You have no like, you have skills, but you don't know which one to pick to monetize. Stage two, you have a skill, but nobody is paying for it, and the bottleneck is the offer. And then stage three, you have a service, but you can't close client consistently. So the bottleneck is usually client acquisition. And stage four, you have clients, but you can't scale past a certain point. And the bottleneck is usually systems and automations, and usually mindset. And yeah, but usually systems and automations. And the reason most people stay stuck is not that they lack information, it's that they're applying stage four solutions to stage one problems. And there is no point in building complex funnels and automations if you don't even have a client yet. So before we go any further, I want you to figure out which stage you're actually at right now. And you need to be honest with yourself because everything in this video is going to make a lot more sense once you know which problem you're actually trying to solve. So, stage one, the skill bottleneck. If you're at this stage, you either don't know what skill to monetize or you don't think yours is valuable enough to make real money with. And the common limiting beliefs at this stage are that you don't believe you deserve to make 10K and you don't believe people actually pay you money to learn from you because you're not an expert in that thing. But the reality is that you don't need to be the best in the world at something. You just need to be better than the person you're helping. And for example, you don't need to be at level 10 to teach someone who's at level 0. You can just be at level 1 and with your skill and you can teach someone who's at level 0. And almost everyone has at least one skill that they can teach you as well. Even if you think you're worthless and you can't do shit, I promise you that you have a skill that you can develop or transform into a real business. You just don't know it yet. And how do you figure it out? How do you figure out what your skill actually is? I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. First, what have you spent a significant amount of time doing? It could be a job, a hobby, something that you've been doing for years. Anything that you spent a significant amount of time on means that you probably have experience in that thing. You have experienced that thing, and experience equals value. Now, the second questions you need to ask yourself is what do people come to you for help with? Like, what do your friends, colleagues, or your family ask you about? Because the things people naturally come to you for are usually a signal of where you can have an edge over most people. And the third question you need to ask yourself is where do you have an unfair advantage? Meaning, where do you already have context, knowledge, or understanding that someone else would have to build from scratch? And this is the most important because an unfair advantage is where you already have momentum. So you're not starting from zero. Now, once you have some answers to these 3 questions, you will need to meet 3 criteria to actually be worth monetizing. Like your skill needs to meet these 3 criterias. First of all, it needs to be in demand, meaning people are paying for it, are already paying for it somewhere. Like you don't want to invent a new market. You want to find one that already exists. And it doesn't matter if it's saturated. I really don't believe in oversaturation. If a market is oversaturated, it just means there's money to be made. You just have to be smart about it. So don't worry about saturation. Now, the second criteria is that it needs to solve a problem because people don't pay for skills. They pay to have their problems solved. And third criteria is that it needs to produce a measurable result, something that you can point to and say, okay, before working with me, you were at this stage, you had this problem, and after working with me, you solved this problem. You didn't have this problem anymore. And if your skill ticks all 3 of these criteria of these boxes, you have something that can be a profitable business. Now, a mistake that a lot of people make is that they spend too much time trying to pick the perfect skill, and there is no such thing as perfect. You just have to pick one, and if it's in demand, it solves a problem and it produces measurable results, then you can go with that. And if you genuinely think you have no skills and you have no idea where to start figuring it out, you can use AI to help you out and basically let AI give you a questionnaire asking you about all your passions, experiences, interests, and answer those questions in detail and ask AI to help you figure out the skill that you can monetize based on your answers. Now, if you're still stuck, Just look at what other people are doing. If you see someone do something that you like and you think you might be good at that thing, just copy what they're doing. And if you don't know anything about that skill or topic, just spend a couple weeks learning as much as you can. You can use AI to learn faster. And I promise you that if you do that for 2 weeks, with 2 weeks of focused learning, you'll know more about that skill than 90% of people. So this is stage one. And you can only move to stage two when you can answer this question in one sentence. What skill do I have? What problem does it solve? And who has that problem? If you can answer these questions, then you can move to stage two. Now, stage two is the offer bottleneck. You have a skill, but nobody is paying for it. Or maybe you've tried to sell it and people keep saying no, or they ghost you, or they'll say they'll think about it and you never hear from them again. And this is the most common stage where people get stuck. And the reason is almost always the same. That is that you're selling the skill and not the result. And there's a big difference between the two. And nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, I really need to buy, I don't know, copywriting today, or I really need a video editor. What they think is, I need more clients, or I need more revenue, or I need my brand to grow, or I need this problem solved. The skill is just how you solve the problem. The result is what they pay you, is why they pay you. Sorry. So if you're out here selling copywriting, you're basically talking to yourself. But if you're selling more clients, more revenue for coaches using copywriting, now you're taking now you're talking to them, you're solving a problem, you're getting them a result, and you're solving a specific pain that they have. And that's the shift that you need to make. Now, once you've made that shift, you need to package it into what's called an offer. And an offer needs to answer 4 questions for the person you're trying to sell to. So, first question is, what's in it for them? How much is it going to cost them? How much time and energy do they have to put in? And how long until they see the results? These are the 4 questions. If your offer can answer all those 4 questions clearly and quickly, well, it's not ready yet. You need to work on your offer. Now, here's the framework I used to build a good offer. And it's very simple. It's who I help achieve what result in what time frame using what mechanism without, what they're scared of or their limiting belief or whatever. So, for example, an offer could be, I help coaches get to 10K a month in 90 days using a done with you service model without needing a big audience or spending money on ads. That's it. It's pretty simple. And the person reading this knows immediately if it's for them or if it's not. And that's exactly what you want. You don't want everyone to say yes. You want the right people to say absolutely yes, this is what I need. Now, the other thing that kills offers at this stage is risk. The person on the other side of the conversation is thinking, okay, this sounds good, but what if it doesn't work? What if I pay this person and get nothing back? And if you're a beginner with no track record, no proof, no case studies, that objection is going to come up every single time. And the way you handle this objection, if you have no experience, no skills, no case studies, is by taking the risk off of the client and putting it on yourself. And the simplest way to do this is a results-based pricing model. For example, you charge a small setup fee to cover your time and then take a percentage of the results you produce. So they're not really paying you until you make them money, for example. And that makes saying yes a lot more, a lot easier. And it takes a lot of the risk off of the client. Another thing that you can do is offer a money back guarantee. If I don't produce this specific result by this specific date, you get your money back. Pretty simple. You can also use AI to refine your offer. For example, you can ask Claude to play the role of a skeptical potential client and ask it to give you a list of all the potential objections they might have and have a good answer ready for every objection. So once you have a good offer, you can move to stage 3. And stage 3 is the client acquisition bottleneck. So you have a skill, you have an offer, but you're not getting enough clients consistently. Maybe you got 2, maybe you got 1, 2, but it's random, it's not consistent, it's unpredictable. So you need to set up reliable client acquisition systems. And when it comes to client acquisition, this is probably the part where most entrepreneurs struggle, to get the ball rolling. And they start doing the most random stuff without a clear plan. For For example, they post a few times on Instagram, then they send a couple cold DMs, then they send a few cold emails, getting zero to little results. And a lot of you will relate to this because we all went through it. We all went through this phase, and it's like one of those unskippable cutscenes in video games. Like every entrepreneur goes through this phase. So let me tell you that the problem is not the platform or the method. The problem is that you're doing everything at 20% instead of doing one thing at 100%. So let me give you the simplest client acquisition system that actually works when you're starting out. And it has two parts. It's content and outreach, and they work together. Now, if you do outreach without content, you're relying on outbound leads. And that means that if you stop doing outreach, your pipeline dries up. You want to get to a point where you get inbound leads and you don't need to heavily rely on cold outreach. I mean, you can still do it if you want to, but it's not your priority. Now, if you do content without outreach, you're just waiting because content takes time, and it takes time to grow a personal brand, grow a YouTube channel, for example, and you're just hoping that the right person finds you, watches your stuff, and decides to apply for your program, sees your landing page or whatever, and that could take a lot of time. That could take months. So the best solution is the combination of both. At the beginning, you rely more on cold outreach because you need time before your content starts picking up and it starts generating leads. It takes a little bit of time. And when you get to the point where your content is doing the heavy lifting and you're getting a lot of your leads organically inbound, then you can either stop or reduce cold outreach. I suggest that you keep doing it, but you can decide to shut it off completely. I advise that you have more than one client acquisition channel just in case something unexpected happens. Let's say, I don't know, God forbid, your YouTube channel gets shut down and now you can't post content and you have no more leads. If you were relying completely on organic content, then you're fucked. So it's good to have more than one client acquisition channel, cold outreach, content, paid ads, and we can go more in depth about paid ads in another video if you want to. Just let me know in the comments. But this is what you do. When it comes to content. You pick one platform, just one, and you post consistently 3 to 5 times a week minimum. And your content should do one thing: show that you understand the problem your ideal client, your ICP, has, and that you know how to solve it. Now, obviously, there are different strategies when it comes to content, but for now, you can focus on making videos that are specific to your ICP. And when it comes to outreach, there is warm and cold outreach. Warm outreach is reaching out to people who have already shown interest in what you're talking about. So let's say, for example, you post a reel on Instagram and someone comments, you can reach out to that person, and that person is not going to be a complete stranger because that person has already seen your video, commented it was interested in, and already showed interest in what you have to offer, what you have to sell. So it's warm outreach, and you can do this while you're posting content. And for cold outreach, what you do is you make a list of prospects and reach out to these people every day. And my strategy at the beginning of list is for cold outreach is less volume and more personalization. And I know Ormozy says volume, volume, volume. And yes, that's true. But I think everything needs to be contextualized. Like, first of all, cold outreach software is to send that many emails, cold emails, like Hormozy says. It's expensive. And maybe you don't have money right now to pay for that. I think it's a whole different skill as well, like sending cold emails at that level. I think it's a whole different skill. But I think it's better to start with fewer messages, fewer conversations. Just know, for example, you're going to send, I don't know, 20, 30 cold outreaches every single day, but make sure they're personalized and as much as you can. So the chances of the people seeing the message and replying are much higher because they see that you put in the effort to research their business, and maybe you recorded a Loom video, and they're much more likely to reply because you put in some effort, and you're not just like everyone else sending the same fucking templated fucking outreach that looks exactly like every other one. And to be honest, nowadays you can use AI to have both kind of personalization and volume at the same time. You just need to know what you're doing. You just need to use it correctly. Now, stage 4 is the systems and automation bottleneck. And this is what I also call the glorified freelancer phase. So at this stage, you have a skill, you have an offer, you're getting clients, but you've hit a ceiling and your revenue is inconsistent. And it seems like you can't scale past a certain number no matter how hard you work. In this phase, your time is also directly tied to the amount of money that you make, meaning that you're probably working 12 to 16 hours a day because you're doing everything by yourself and you don't have the right systems in place to scale your operation. This is not a bad problem to have. It's actually good because it means that what you're doing is working. You just haven't built the right infrastructure to support the growth. So let me explain exactly what this stage looks like. You're basically doing everything yourself. You're the one creating the content, doing the outreach, getting on sales calls, delivering the service, handling admin tasks, answering all the clients' messages. You're doing everything. And there are only many hours in a day. So at some point, the business stops growing because not because you don't have demand, but because you don't have the capacity to handle more business. So the solution is systems. And by systems, I don't mean complicated automations and software setups. I mean figuring out what you should stop doing yourself and either delegating it, automating it, or cutting it entirely if it's not necessary. So here's how I see it. Here's how I think about it. Calculate your effective hourly rate. So take what you made last month and divide it by the hours you worked. And that number is what your time is worth right now. And anything you're spending time on that's below that number should be not done by you. And for example, let's say you made 8K last month working 160 hours, 60 hours, 160 hours, and your time is worth $50 an hour. Basically, anything that can be done by someone else for less than $50 an hour should not be done by you. Should not be on your plate. You should be spending every available hour on the things only you can do, the things that move the business forward and actually move the needle. Now, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions about everything you currently do in your business. These are the questions: is this taking a lot of my time without producing equivalent results? If yes, you can systemize it or cut it. Is this something I hate doing? If yes, you can outsource it. 'Cause the things that you hate doing are the things you procrastinate on, do badly or drain your energy. And the third question is this something someone else could do more efficiently than I? And if yes, you need to find that person. And honestly, in 2026, a lot of what used to requiring hiring people can now be done with AI. Writing outreach messages, following up with leads, creating content, building SOPs, answering repetitive client questions, repurposing content across platforms. All this used to take 3 to 5K a month in team members. Now you can do it with the right AI setup and maybe one person to manage everything. And that's a massive advantage if you use it. And most people aren't using it correctly, which means there's an open window to get ahead of everyone else in 2026. The other thing you need to do at this stage is to apply the 80-20 rule to your client acquisition. So look back at everything you've been doing to get clients and ask yourself what actually worked. Because I promise you, it wasn't everything. It was probably 2 or 3 specific things that produced the majority of your results. And everything else was just stuff that kept you busy but didn't produce actual results. And you need to find those 2 or 3 things and go 10 times harder on them and drop the rest. And that's how you break through the ceiling. Okay, so those are the 4 stages: the skill bottleneck, the offer bottleneck, the client acquisition bottleneck, and the systems and automations bottleneck. And I know it sounds like a lot, but it's not, because you don't have to solve all 4 problems at once. You just have to solve the one that you're actually at right now. And most people fail not because they're not working hard enough. They fail because they're working on the wrong stage. They're working on the wrong problems. They're building systems when they don't have even clients yet. They're obsessing over their offer when they don't even have an established skill yet. So you need to figure out where you are, what stage you are, and you need to solve that problem first and then move to the next one. That's it. If you do this and you're consistent about it, getting to 10K a month is not as hard as you think. Promise you that. And if someone can build a $500,000 business teaching people how to scoop dog poop, and then you can definitely turn a skill into 10K a month and scale it to 100K a month, even more. So that's it. Figure it out and get to work. And hope this was helpful. And I'll see you in the next one.